talking to myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true.
Few technical difficulties this morning, but we're getting there in the end. Not sure where Ross is, so I'm going to jump on and start doing the adverts and take your questions whilst we wait for Ross. He did confirm last night that he will be jumping on the show, so we will see how far we go from here. Big shout out as well to Chris and to Pete for another wonderful fans forum last night. I do like just to dip in and watch that and see what people are saying and what people's reactions are. But yeah, thanks for everybody for taking the time, and thanks to the lads for doing some epic shows, it has to be said, over the last few weeks. It's been quite remarkable, some of the shows and some of the callers that they've had on. Thanks very much for taking part. Okay, as always, it's a big thank you to Spider Miner, worldwide coverage. They are the only cryptocurrency miner that can mine 5 different cryptocurrencies at the same time whilst using virtually no energy, and it's VPN protected. Buy yours now at www.miner.spidervpn.org. Thanks also to skipsandbins.com, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website www.skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks also to L&G Family Funeral Directors, 01913897245, and a Garden of Healing Dispensary, CBD, hemp and cannabinoid specialists, www.thegohd.com. Thanks also to John at QTech, qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wolves and Newcastle, and the guys who run our website, NUFCmatters.com. I hope you enjoyed the snooker over the weekend. John, Ronnie O'Sullivan, obviously equaling Stephen Hendry's 7 titles. Fascinating game and a fascinating tournament. And a big thank you also to Kai. Meet the new game over screen. Drop into a ClearRun device near you. Available on Apple Store, Google Play, and clearrun.game. Thanks to Media Arts for help with all the video side of things. And if you want to subscribe, hit the Newcastle Legends logo in the bottom right-hand corner, and you can subscribe for free. Hit the thumb up under the video to like the video. Click share to share to your social media, and drop into the comments box to speak to like-minded Newcastle fans. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and other podcast providers. Throw your phone camera over the QR code to take you straight to the website, and you can become a member. You will get a cup, a scarf, a membership card, and you will get entry into the monthly draw. Also get a pen as well. If you're a subscriber, all you need to do is email John at nufcmatters.com and get your free car sticker, and you can get one of those for free for being a subscriber. Don't forget as well, you can make a donation to nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk 365 days of the year. Use the match day bucket. We have an event coming up. It's our end of season do, Friday the 24th of June at Shearer's Bar. Tickets at £12 and available from nufcmatters.com. An evening with Mick Lowes and Andy Griffin. Looking forward to that. Should be a cracking event. And we are still selling tickets. $2.99 a ticket for the signed Shearer Ball. Again, go to our website, nufcmatters.com. And John has loaded up some pretty good T-shirts on there, some new T-shirts, some new ranges. He's always updating them, so get yourself on there and make sure that you have a look at what we have got. And it's a big welcome to Ross Gregory. Morning, Ross.
Morning, Steve. Sorry I'm a little bit late to the call.
Don't worry, I've always got plenty of adverts to get through to get we warmed up. But good to see you, mate. And let's talk about the positive game of the weekend first. The women's football. I don't think it was ever any doubt that there would be a record crowd there, and over 22,000 at St James's Park to watch Newcastle women's team, run out comprehensive 4-0 winners, and it was a feel-good factor from start to finish that day.
Fantastic turnout. Obviously, you're never surprised by the Geordie public, by the Newcastle fans getting behind the teams. We've seen it with the men's team through thick and thin over recent years. So yeah, a real positive a positive day, a really positive experience. Good to see the community kind of pulling together around the women's football. Great for them to be playing in front of a huge crowd like that at St James's, and it just builds on that feel good factor around the club. And Amanda Staveley and the ownership group said when they came in that they wanted to bring everybody together. They wanted to bring the whole club together. They wanted to include the women's team a lot more than what it has been, and that was a fantastic example of what can be achieved when everyone pulls together.
Yeah, and I mean, the crowd, it never surprises you. I mean, I know it was cheap to get there, and it was a great opportunity for people to take their kids in and watch the game, but they really got behind the women's team, and it was great for them to, not only to run out comprehensive 4-0 winners, but for them to sample that kind of atmosphere, and they'll be hoping, I guess, that they can do a lot more of that moving forward.
Definitely, and do you know what it is as well, Steve? It's great for the team, for the women's team, and it's great that they're getting the recognition and they're getting that support as well. But it's really good for the fans as well, because the way things are going with the men's team, getting tickets is as difficult as what it was under the Keegan era. There's a waiting list. People can't get tickets at the minute for love and money at times. So to be able to go along, I know, my son went, he took him and his girlfriend went. There was a lot of families and kids who went who aren't normally able to go to St James's and experience that sort of atmosphere. And this could be the way into supporting the club for a lot of young fans, for a lot of kids who don't have that opportunity to go on a Saturday when the men's team's playing. So it's another great opportunity and another way of getting that fan base all singing from the same hymn sheet.
Yeah, going back to the Newcastle-Liverpool game, I mean, look, we looked ahead to it last week. We knew it was going to be a tough test. We didn't get embarrassed, Ross. No,
absolutely not. And I think that was really important. Look, I've said before, I think I said last week, and I've certainly said on Twitter that I think this Liverpool team's as good as I've seen in the Premier League. City are excellent as well, don't get us wrong, but this Liverpool team, and they might not even win the league, but they're just on a different level. And I thought that was really evident at the weekend as well. I thought that Newcastle kind of stuck at it, had a game plan, worked really hard, but never looked like landing a proper blow on Liverpool, because they were just that good. They were just that professional, that polished, and that strong. That it was a comfortable 1-0 for them. That said, when it's 1-0 and Bruno gets that chance towards the end, if he hit it a little bit better and like you say, stayed in the game, didn't get embarrassed, didn't get outclassed. It was encouraging in one sense that the team stuck at it and showed that they can match say Liverpool's, but also it was just good to measure to get a kind of gauge of where Newcastle are at in comparison to your Liverpool's and your Man Cities, and this weekend will be exactly the same. So it was an intriguing game. Wasn't the best from a performance perspective, and we maybe could have gone for it a little bit more maybe, but yeah, Liverpool are just a fantastic team. I know that's not going to. I know a lot of fans, Newcastle fans, have got they're not big Liverpool fans, and I understand that. But I think they're absolutely superb at the minute.
John Askew, morning all. He says Liverpool were not a full strength, but were comfortable winners. Could this work in our favour by highlighting weaknesses and confirming how much work we need to do, Ross?
Yeah, I think. Before the game, you looked at that Liverpool lineup, and they've left Salah out, they've left Alexander-Arnold out, Canate at the back, Fabinho, Thiago, who's just been superb the last month or so. They left 5 really big players out, and you look and you think, hang on a second, might be a little bit of a sniff. Yeah, are they taking Newcastle for granted a little bit? Are they underestimating them? But then you looked at the rest of the team and you thought, the players that they can bring in, the strength of depth that they've got, they're probably still. I think probably every player in that Liverpool starting 11 on Saturday would have got into Newcastle's team, with the exception maybe of, I said before the game, without the exception of probably Milner, who's a little bit past his best, was being a great player. I haven't said that Milner was excellent on Saturday, so he kind of made us eat my words a little bit. So it just showed the strength and depth that you need, and that Newcastle, with the ambitions that the club's got these days, that the strength and quality that they're going to have to produce and get right if they want to compete in that top 2, top 3.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, it was Milner's challenge, which proved to be fair, which ultimately led to the goal as well.
Yeah. It was. I thought he was excellent, Milner, and I've seen him a few times recently this season, and you can see that he's just not quite at the same level that he used to be, and he's been found out in a couple of games. But against us, I thought he was excellent.
Yeah, definitely was. Never be forgotten what he did at Newcastle. He was a great servant in his early part of his career as well. Blue Rhythm Boy says, do you think the balance of the relegation battle at the time could affect our performance as well as Burnley's on the last day?
I'm absolutely astounded by what Burnley have done. Once they sacked Sean Dyche, I thought that was it. I thought that was them gone. I thought it was an odd move. It was a strange one, but they've pulled some results out of the bag, to be fair, and you get a little bit of momentum, a little bit like what Newcastle had earlier this year. Once you get on that winning run and there's a good buzz about the place, then it's you can get on a bit of a roll. And Burnley just haven't stopped frightening. We shouldn't write them off. They've probably been written off several times over recent years, but they keep bouncing back. So it's going to be interesting. It could all well be done by the time the last day of the season comes. The relegation picture might have all been concluded. So, but if not, it's going to be a great day, a great atmosphere, and Burnley will be fighting for their lives, I think, between now and the end of the season. And you look and you think, actually, they could survive now.
Yeah, it's been a fascinating end of the season at the bottom. I'm just glad we haven't been in the middle of it for the last few weeks. John Askew also asks, was the Liverpool game a glass half full or empty? We only conceded one, but we never looked like scoring. I mean, it was really, really, us up against it, John. And I mean, after a fine run of form, I personally felt that, this was the big, the big question mark. How was Eddie Howe going to, tackle this game? And I think it told us a lot. I think it told us we know exactly what our level is. We know where we are. But as a defensive unit, as a defensive team, we can hold our own. We've done so well. It's been a big part of this run, to the mid-table position that we find ourselves in now. And we all know, we've known since August. We've known since July when we were down at York City and we got beat 1-0 off Steve Watson's York City that we are lacking a centre forward, a striker, a goal scorer. Call it what you will, and that is something which we lack. And until that is fixed, or until Callum Wilson can play 38 games, without missing a game, then we're always going to be in the same position. So we need to invest in that area. We need to bring in 2 strikers. I think you keep a hold of Chris Wood, you keep a hold of Callum Wilson, and you bring in, a goal scorer and a striker. Obviously, 2 completely different positions, and you bring goals to the team, Ross.
Yeah, we've said this on previous shows, haven't we? That top end of the pitch is where you need to spend your money, where you need to get it absolutely right. That's where you've got to spend the big bucks, because that's where the top players are. We've talked about Liverpool again. Leave Salah out, but they've got Diaz and Jota, and Firmino was injured, and they've still got Mane, and they've still you've got people like Origi and Minamino who can't get anywhere near the team. We've just got so much quality up there. I think Newcastle need at least 2 in them positions, whether they're wide forwards, whether they're players who play through the middle, whether they're goal scoring midfielders. I think that's where Newcastle need to improve a little bit more on, as well as getting them goals from midfield. You've got to be looking to spend big money, I think, in the summer, if they're serious about breaking into that top 5-6, because that's where the quality needs to be added.
Yeah, breaking news on social media, on Twitter, is that the young lad who was videoed urinating on the statue of Bob Stokoe down at the stadium. Like, he's been arrested. A 21-year-old man has been arrested in connection with the incident, and well done, because ultimately that was a disgusting act against somebody who was not only a great manager and player for Sunderland, but also for Newcastle United, and somebody who was part of the 1950s FA Cup winning teams. And for me to see a video like that circulating was nothing short of disgusting. I didn't retweet it last night. I saw a lot of people retweeting it and saying disgusting, and I can understand why people were doing that, but I just couldn't do that. Why on earth give this guy his 5 minutes of fame for such a disgraceful act? And ultimately now, because of the fact that he's been seen across social media, I guess, ultimately it's it's led to this person's arrest, and I'm sure the law will be meted out accordingly. Northumbria Police followed up by saying, "We recognise incidents of this nature can cause anger and frustration. We'd ask everyone to please respect the ongoing investigation and refrain from anything that could jeopardise our inquiries. We'll continue to work with Sunderland Football Club to bring justice against anybody involved." But yeah, I mean, disgusting that, Ross.
Oh, completely disgusting. Doesn't matter what your allegiances are. It doesn't matter whether you're a Newcastle fan, a Sunderland fan, a Hartlepool fan, which is where Bob Stokoe hails from. Whatever club that you support, whatever your allegiances are, it's just beyond the pale stuff like that. It's absolutely pathetic. It's absolutely ridiculous. And stuff like that hopefully should unite fan bases as well, rather than cause more chasms and divides. Whatever goes on, whatever the rivalries on the pitch, you've got to have a little bit of respect. We've got to have a lot more respect than that. And Bob Stokoe was a fantastic servant to Newcastle United, like you say, in the 50s. 200 and odd games for the club, and cup winners, medals and everything. Fantastic manager for Sunderland as well, leading to the 73 cup final win. So look, you put rivalries aside and you just say, look, stuff like that's wrong, absolutely wrong.
Yeah, disgusting, and let's hope they throw the book at the kid, because he certainly deserves it. On social media over the weekend as well, there was an interesting video circulating of Jacob Murphy, who appeared to be at a local hostelry leading the Joe Linton song.
Yeah, Joe Linton's the man of the moment, isn't he? With the fan base, with the players, with everything. Jacob Murphy's he's a Newcastle fan. People say, I think a lot of time people forget that about Jacob Murphy, and he's grown up as a Newcastle fan, him and his brother. Great to see the passion, and great to see that kind of team spirit around the club again. It goes into that feel good factor that we've been talking about.
Yeah, it does. Fantastic. Great stuff. There's the positives and negatives of social media. Steve Mowat, morning. He says, hi, Stephen Ross. Do you think ASM would benefit from switching to the right wing when Trippier is fit? I think his performances would improve. Good question, Steve. Ross, what do you think of that?
Yeah, good question, Steve. I think he's I think it's a good shout, that. I think having Saint-Maximin on that right hand side with Trippier in behind him, kind of coaching and encouraging and just supporting him, I think isn't the worst shout at all. One of the big frustrations I've got with Saint-Maximin is that when he plays on the left, he cuts in on his right foot. For me, too much, too often, and kind of runs himself into trouble. Whether you're screaming for him to kind of go out on the outside, beat his man on the outside, and get a cross in, and he cuts in onto his right foot, and into a lot of traffic sometimes. And I think a lot of teams have become savvy to that, and they know how to shut him down when he's on the ball there. Obviously, fantastic ability, fantastic skill. When he's on that right hand side, you would think he's got more opportunity then to go around that outside, go beat his man on the outside and get a cross in. But he tends when he plays on that right side to come inside on his left foot sometimes as well. So I think, obviously, having someone like Kieran Trippier behind him is going to be a benefit. There's a player there in Saint-Maximin. He's obviously a fantastic talent. We get frustrated with him a little bit because we know how talented he is and what he can produce. He's the one player in that team who can get fans off their seat, who can excite and equally at times frustrate fans. So getting the best out of them, I think, is a real challenge for Eddie Howe and the rest of the coaching staff in over the next 12 months.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting summer. We keep saying it. Will we keep a hold of ASM? Will we be tempted to sell him if a big enough offer comes in and choose to use that and bring in other players in? It's going to be a hell of a season, pre-season. So let's wait and see. John says if the gate was 22,000, that means a further 30,000 could have fitted into the stadium. Is it true? It didn't look like that many more could be squeezed into me. Well, the way that it works, John, for games of that kind of nature, obviously it's the first time the women's team have played there, but for previous friendlies, for example, home friendlies at the start of the season, or for games with the reserves back in the old days of the Pontins League, certain stands were open, so they weren't anticipating a full house. Obviously tickets were on sale in advance for the game, so they have a good idea about what's going to come. They did get caught a little bit short, it has to be said, because obviously the game kicked off 15 minutes late due to the amount of people who were still outside trying to get in. But it, because it'd been a home game as well, less than 24 hours earlier, I just think people, a lot of people would have been sleeping it off and wouldn't have even contemplated going to St James's Park at 2:00 that afternoon. But that was the reason, I think. Nevertheless, it was a higher attendance than some Premier League games. And I think that is why, it made such global news, Ross, I guess.
No, absolutely. It's the potential there again with all elements of the club. I'd like to see the youth teams and the junior teams get a little bit more exposure at somewhere like St James's. When the under-18s play there in the FA Youth Cup, you often get big crowds as well. I think the potential with a club to take off since the takeovers happened is immense. Hopefully we see more women's games at St James's Park, and hopefully we see more huge attendances like we saw at the weekend.
And there's no doubt that if we had the juniors or the development teams playing at St James's Park, people would go to watch it. I guess the two things to take into consideration is that it would cost you money, because obviously these games maybe have to be let's say a Newcastle team plays a Sunderland team, then it needs to be policed, and that would come into consideration. The cost of opening the ground, I guess, as well, and the state of the pitch. I mean, pitches, modern day pitches are a lot better than, the pitches that we had back in the 80s and 90s, early 90s. But, ultimately the first team has to come first for us. Yeah,
definitely. I think pick and choose the games, pick and choose, make it a kind of statement game, make it a special occasion where you can get, a couple of games, 3-4 games a season, maybe on St James's, protect the pitch for the first team, obviously, but at certain points in the season, we're going to be, we've seen rugby league being played on and rugby union played at St James's, plenty in the past. Let's make sure that we're giving our young players an opportunity to play in front of big crowds, because that's only going to benefit their development as well. For me, if they're trying to step up from the 23s or from the 18s into the first team environment, how do they handle playing in front of, all of a sudden being parachuted into a game at St James's Park in front of 52,000 fans when they've only ever experienced maybe, a couple of hundred at a game. So I think it's important that the young players are given that exposure to pressures and environments like St James's with a big crowd. But yeah, you've got to pick and choose the games wisely.
Got to be honest, I felt pretty sorry for Barnsley's women's team who missed out on the opportunity of a lifetime. It appears down to a bit of bureaucracy, really, but they got robbed of the opportunity.
Yeah, that would be you'd be devastated if you were in that Barnsley team, wouldn't you? You've got that opportunity to play in front of a big crowd like that. But fantastic for the ANEC team and fantastic for the women's team. Hopefully, we'll see a few more games like that over the next 12 to 18 months or so.
Our neighbours haven't been very noisy in recent times, but they had a lot to shout about yesterday, Ross. Chorley 2, Gateshead 2. Gateshead are back in the National League.
It's just the best story. I'm really glad you brought that one up, Steve, because it's just a really, really fantastic story. Look, my history as a journalist, working on the Gateshead Post 20 odd years ago when first got into this game, and working with yourselves and people like that, and following the club's had such a checkered history. It's well documented over the last going back to the 70s really. But if we focus in on just the last couple of 3 years, the club was within hours, literally hours, of going out of business. So for it to revive and to step back into that National League, where obviously they were relegated from it for financial issues and penalties that were beyond the control of the playing staff and everything else like that. They've come back. The supporters have got a hold of the club. There's a really, really strong connection between the fans, the ownership now, and the playing staff. It's just a really, really positive story. Mike Williamson's done an incredible job there. Ian Watson done an incredible job there. The whole backroom staff, and I'm just chuffed to bits for them. I think it's if Mike Williamson, Eddie Howe's done a brilliant job. Don't get me wrong. Alex Neil at Sunderland's done a fantastic job. But if Mike Williamson doesn't win some sort of Manager of the Year for the North East in the next awards, I think it's a scandal, because the job that he's done there is brilliant. And I hope again we come back. The problems that Gateshead have had over the years is being unable to get them really big crowds and get it to take off. I hope if we can get a little bit more publicity and profile for them, and I hope that when Newcastle don't have a home game, when Sunderland don't have a home game, fans can go and watch Gateshead. That would be great.
Would you like to see a bit more of a connection between Newcastle and Gateshead? Because they are our neighbours, they are on the doorstep, and there's been many occasions where players have gone out to gain experience with Gateshead and come back all the better for it. So with Gateshead getting into the next tier and only one tier away from league football, is now the time to maybe try and instigate that kind of connection.
No, definitely. I think you're right. Players have gone out on loan there, and it's really benefited some players. Paul Dummett had a spell at Gateshead very, very early on in his career, which put him on the right path. And we've seen it over the years that when the two teams and the two clubs do connect in, it benefits both. I think you've got to get it right, because Gateshead are playing so many levels below Newcastle at the minute. If Gateshead, but now that they're back up in the National League, if we can send some of the young players out on loan, your Elliot Arnesons and your Joe Whites and people of that kind of ilk, to get more experience playing at senior football, at men's football, and great. I'd love to see another pre-season friendly between the two clubs as well. If we get something set up like that. I'm old enough to remember. In the 90s when Newcastle took a team to Gateshead, and I think it must be 95. I think it was, Steve, probably when Ginola and Ferdinand first signed, and the Gateshead Stadium being sold out with 11,500 there, which was a fantastic occasion as well. It would be good if we could get a close connection between the two clubs. Again, get it established, and I think it's beneficial to both teams.
John asks, would you like us to say Mitro or Tony? Perhaps Mitro's come on a bit recently. I would say no to both, John. I know Mitro has just broken the record in the Championship, but I genuinely would not take Mitro back. He's not a Premiership player for me. Ivan Toney as well. I don't see the point of bringing somebody back who's already been at the club and hasn't done well. There has been the odd occasion I can think back. Going back to the 90s, Mark McGee, didn't have a great first spell at the club, came back and had a wonderful spell with Mickey Quinn in that season where we just missed out on automatic promotion and then fell at the final hurdle in the playoffs. But for me, I would never go back. Ross, have you a different mindset?
No, same mindset. I don't think, they're good players and they've obviously had, really good seasons. Mitro at Fulham with 43 goals, and Ivan Toney's done well for Brentford in the Premier League this season as well. I would just look at it and think, right, where are Newcastle now? 9th, 10th. What's the aim next season? Push top 8, maybe, as we talked about last week, in a good cup run. Are these? Or what's the type of players that are going to elevate Newcastle onto that next level? What type of forwards? what's the standard of players that are going to push Newcastle into that top 8, top 6 eventually over the next 3 or 4 years? Is it Mitrovic and Ivan Toney? I don't think so.
No, definitely not. We need to be looking at a lot better than that, I think. Geordie Tubalai says, do you think the Mane studs up on Dubravka should have been looked at by VAR, not even mentioned on Ref Watch on Sky? I didn't really notice this on the day. We don't get the benefit of replays in the stand, of course. So it was my brother Rob who actually said that was dangerous play. Now, obviously, from a different camera angle, from the goalkeeper's perspective, it looked a hell of a lot worse. So I think it should have at least been looked at. Mane's got a bit of history for this kind of play as well. What's your thoughts, Ross?
Yeah, Mane plays on the edge, doesn't he? You know, he does get himself into 1 or 2 little situations. It was fine for me. I thought it was okay. You know, I think they had a look at it, and yeah, he's gone for the ball. He's missed the ball. It's a little bit late. It's a little bit. I'm not one for kind of massively retrospectively, you know, reffing the game in that sense. I thought it was okay. But if it had been the way I always try to look at these things is if the shoe's on the other foot, if it had been, you know, Chris Wood at the other end with Alisson or whatever, would you have been thinking, oh, that's a red card or anything? Not for me. You would have been disappointed if the shoe had been on the other foot. So that's how I try to judge it, and I thought it was okay.
Blue Rhythm Boys asking who we think will be relegated. I think it's going to be Norwich, Watford and Leeds, I think. I think Everton will get away with it by the skin of their teeth. I think Burnley have already got the bit between their teeth. I think Leeds look doomed. I'm not sure what the news is on Dallas, but you know, to lose another player, a key player to injury, you know, I just think all of the signs and the powers that be are aligning against Leeds, and it doesn't look good. But you might have a different opinion.
No, I think it's just so hard to call, isn't it?
It is
so hard to call. Every time you have Burnley are gone, and then Everton are going to struggle to get out of this with a run of games that they've got. Then they go and beat Chelsea and put in a really good performance, I thought, against Chelsea. And then Leeds, that, you know, they win a couple of games and you think, they look like they're on the verge of safety, and then they've got sucked back in. It's so hard to call. Leeds do look in a bit of trouble. The new manager bounce has probably deserted them now. What I always thought with Leeds was, when they had Bielsa, that they would get beat 5 games in a row and then they'd go and pull a massive result out, you know, because that's just the style of football that they played under Bielsa, where it was kind of all or nothing. You know, that's why they would get out of it. But yeah, you might be right, Steve. You might be right. Leeds might be the one. We'll probably come back next week and have the results will have twisted and changed again, and we'll be saying, oh, Burnley are in bother again, or Everton are in bother. It's just so tight to call.
It is. Who do you think will win the league then? Liverpool or Man City?
I'm going to go City. I think they'll just pinch it. I think they're just a juggernaut, and whether they'll. You can quite easily see neither team dropping any points between now and the end of the season, and just all winning all their games between now and the end of the season, and City will just pinch it. It's going to be tight, but yeah, I'll go City.
Keith saying, who's going to be in the Champions League first, the men's team or the women's team? I think the women's team are a slightly lower tier, Keith, but hey, listen, Newcastle's first team, if they make the right signings, I think they'll be there first. There's no doubt about that. Geordie Tuber Life says, Mitro hasn't got the pace for the Premier League. He'd be lucky if he gets double figures in the Premier League. Only my opinion. I do think you're right. I just don't think he's Premier League class. The defences are a lot harder, and the pace is a lot quicker. And he it's showing the gulf in class now between the Premier League and the Championship, I think. John says, some fans think we've got a chance of signing Jesu from City, but will one of the so-called top 6 really sell to us? I've got my doubts. Do you think there's still that kind of animosity? I think that's in a lot of journalists' heads about clubs not selling to us, because I still think agents dominate football, Ross. I don't think clubs of course have got a say to a degree, but contracts still aren't worth the paper they're written on, and agents still control football. Yeah,
money talks, isn't it? Are Man City going to reject a bid from Newcastle just because it's because it's Newcastle? I don't think so. I think if a player ultimately wants to move to somewhere, he's probably going to get that deal. Like you say, the agents are going to negotiate that on his behalf. You might, I think what Newcastle will have to be wary of in the summer and moving forward is that there will be there will probably be a Newcastle premium on it, a Newcastle tax, where you might have to pay a couple of million extra for a player than what he's possibly worth, just because people know that Newcastle have got money to spend, know that they're pushing for certain players. But are Man City going to say no? We're not going to sell Gabriel Jesus to Newcastle, but we'll sell him to Arsenal. Well, Arsenal are currently closer a threat to Man City than Newcastle are. So no, I don't see that one personally.
Tom asking who our Newcastle player of the season is, or who do we think the player of the season will be? It's got to be Joe Linton, I think, for his amazing turnaround.
Yeah, he deserves it as well. Equally, I don't think, if you look at it, I don't think there's a whole load of other standout candidates. If you're looking at it as this season as a whole, since the turn of the year, the players that have come in, Bruno's done fantastic well, Dan Burn, Fabian Schär's done really well. But for the whole story, the whole season, the way he's turned his Newcastle career around, not just his season around, I think it's the only obvious choice is Joe Linton, isn't it?
Yeah, it's got to be. I mean, those of you in the chat might have a different view, but I think Joe Linton all round has certainly been the best pound for pound player this year, and it's been fantastic. I mean, Bruno, Trippier, great signings, but Joe Linton has just turned things around, and he deserves every plaudit that he gets for that. Mike Gent's got a rather bizarre question asking if you have you recently dressed up as Postman Pat? What is this, a stag do or something?
I used to work at Harry Ramsden's when I was a student, back in the day. So I did a variety of jobs there, Steve. And thanks very much, Mickey Gent, for calling us out on here. So I used to do a variety of jobs. I was a waiter. I was a table clearer. I worked in the kitchen as a porter and all sorts. But one of the roles that I did combine with as well was I dressed up as Postman Pat and went and entertained the kids around the restaurant when they were getting their fish and chips. It was absolutely boiling, absolutely sweating. You can only do it for 15 minutes at a time, then you had to have a half an hour break because you were just dripping with sweat. But yeah, cheers, Mickey, for that one.
I love it. At least you owned it, which is good. Ross says, John, is our scouting system good enough to compete with the likes of City, Liverpool, etc.? I think it's crucial moving forward.
Yeah, it's a really, really good point. A really, really good question. I think, if we're being honest, not at the minute. I think the whole club needs to develop, and it was cut to the bone so much under the Ashley regime that certain areas of the club need to be strengthened and need to be improved, and need to get the infrastructure right behind the scenes a lot better than what it is at the minute. Again, I'll go back to Liverpool. Their scouting and their recruitment is, with Michael Edwards and everybody else there, has been unrivaled. I think some of they've spent some money, but not some of the bargains and some of the players that they're getting. You've brought in Salah for 37 million. They brought in your Manes and your likes, your Andy Robertsons and people like this. They've spent money, but they've recruited really, really well. And you look at the squad, their squad depth and strength and depth is second to none, I think, in the Premier League. And they haven't spent the money that your Man Uniteds and your Cities and whatever have spent. So to answer the question, I think Steve Nixon's doing a really good job at Newcastle, and he's clearly got a good eye for players, and he's got some good scouts and a good network around him. But it does need strengthened over the next couple of years.
No, definitely does. Hangs Tight says, could NUFC do more to help support schools and younger generations succeed in sports? I mean, the foundation does a great job, Ross, doesn't it? And I mean, they've just opened a new centre.
Yeah. The foundation is it's going to be another really important part of what the club tries to achieve over the next few years. I'd love to see more young academy players coming through Newcastle. I think we all would. I think we'd love to see more school involvement, more of a community feel, getting the players through that academy, like we saw in the 90s when we had that kind of influx. Well, in the 80s as well with your Gazzas and your Beardsleys and whatever. But the 90s with Lee Clark and Robbie Elliott and Stevie Watson and Alan Thompson and Lee Makel and so on, and there was so many of them came through. Steve Howie at a really, really good level. I'd love to see more coming through that academy. More scouting through the school network, and bringing players through the academy setup. I think it's going to be really important. But the foundations is a fantastic. My son's been involved with the foundation over the years, and I've seen what the really good work that they do with coaching and linking in with the community. So yeah, it's a great asset to the city.
Jody Tuber Life asking, is there any truth about the Dubravka rumour being linked to NUFC? I mean, we're seeing names start getting thrown around, and we are going to be doing a transfer show over the course of the summer, and I'm going to start jotting down how many players we actually get linked with. But the season's not finished yet, Ross. Are the links now starting to come out? Now that we know which teams are coming up, we know certain teams going down, etc. Is it starting to heat up now, the transfer rumours?
Yeah, massively. We're seeing that with work. We're seeing that there's all of a sudden there's more interest in transfers. There's more names being mentioned. There's obviously a lot of work going on behind the scenes, and that, I suppose, that never stops during the season for your recruitment team and your scouts. They're always working, but there's a lot more activity. I think particularly around Newcastle, and you're absolutely right, Steve. There's going to be a huge kind of interest in the pre-season and the summer around transfers. But I think particularly now, what I've seen is that it's heating up with Newcastle, or the interest is intensifying with Newcastle, probably because the team's safe. Not going to get relegated, not going to, we're going to finish in and around that mid-table. So already the kind of the thoughts, I think, in the eyes are on the summer and what's going to happen then. A lot of teams are still fighting relegation or still fighting for titles and stuff like that. So their focus is purely on the football. I'm not saying Newcastle are taking their eye off the ball or they're on the beach or anything else like that. But I do think there's the eyes and the interest has already started focusing on the summer and what can be done recruitment wise. It's going to be an interesting one.
Yeah, definitely is. Looking forward to it as things progress. Brian Parks says, from where we were to where we are now is amazing. Full credit to everyone concerned. The women's team has added a further dimension. How we're the lads and lasses. And John says, Rafa's always talked about the potential of our club. Fantastic that there's a chance for it now to be fulfilled. And Tom just reiterating what we said before, that it is great to see Gateshead getting promoted. Steve H, morning. He says, one issue for many was the club said that cash turnstiles, but being a cashless club, many people thought the card payments would be accepted. This isn't the women's game. I met many who were caught out and had to queue at the cash point. He goes on to say that even with a ticket, my turnstile operator refused to accept my ticket and demanded I pay £3 in cash. Strangely, the food outlets were accepting cash and card contactless payments in the Leazes end, unlike first team games where cashless only is still an issue for many, especially younger fans. Well, that's an interesting one, that, Steve. Thanks for sharing your experience. And I guess that really shows that although on the surface and with the team, which of course is the most important thing, things are going well and have vastly improved since the 7th of October. It shows that there's still a lot of teething problems behind the scenes, Ross, which need to be improved and need to be gotten right.
Yeah, definitely, and that's going to continue. I think we just have to have a little bit of patience with the owners, with getting everything right off the pitch. There's so many moving parts, and there's so many different elements to running a club of Newcastle United's size. The club is going to try some things. It's going to try to accelerate the improvements, but there will be some teething problems along the way, and we just have to have a little bit of patience with them. But equally, at the same time, highlight what some of the issues potentially are, and hopefully the club will recognise those and get them fixed.
El Stapleton asking a question neither of us can answer. Why haven't Everton had to answer for massive losses over the last 4 years and still been allowed to buy in players? I just really don't understand that situation.
No, me neither. I think we talked about it last week, didn't we? It's such a murky and difficult situation. There's definitely conversations going on with Everton and the FA and FIFA and whatnot behind the scenes. So we'll see if anything develops from them. But yeah, it's a murky situation, especially with COVID, with some of the losses that clubs have incurred over recent over the last couple of years because of COVID. That's kind of distorted the landscape a little bit. So yeah, want to keep an eye on.
John, I really don't know is the answer to this. I mean, who do we fancy for our big signing this summer? Just somebody who's going to score goals. I think we mentioned it earlier on. We just want to see a goal scorer, Ross.
Yeah. Let's bring in Harry Kane. That'd be the one for me.
There we go. Alan Shearer said the same mind when we did the talking with him a few weeks ago. Gary Douglas says, "Hi Steve, who do you think will get second place in the Championship? Bournemouth or Nottingham Forest?" Now we discussed this with Holly on the show the other day. I really would like to see Forest come up. I've got to be honest. I like Forest. I've got a soft spot for them from the old Brian Clough days. You got any preference, Ross, for who you'd like to see come up? I did say I'd like to see Borough come up in the playoffs. I'm still one of these people who likes to see all three teams, in the same division. But with Newcastle as top dogs, and we've been deprived of that in recent years.
Yeah, it's a massive game tonight, isn't it? Bournemouth. I think it's Bournemouth Forest tonight. It's a huge game. I'm a bit like you. I've got a bit of a soft spot for Forest. I think it's a nice ground. It's a club with a bit of history to it. I think from an away day perspective, then Forest's probably a better option than it is travelling down to Bournemouth. So yeah, it's an interesting one. The rest of the playoffs, look quite tight as well. I like quite a few of the clubs in there. I think I'd love in some ways to see Luton back up in the top flight as well. I know they got absolutely spanked yesterday off Fulham, but if they could get in the playoffs and somehow get up, I think that would be great. Another decent away day to an old fashioned ground that they've got down there. I quite like Sheffield United as well. I've got a bit of a soft spot for Sheffield United, so I wouldn't mind seeing them come up. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting couple of games for the clubs involved.
And Borough have got themselves into a nice little position there. I mean, we nothing is certain, but they've got Preston away. Millwall play Bournemouth. It's going to be it really is going to be an interesting final day of the season in the Championship, and fingers crossed for Middlesbrough. It'd be nice for them to get into the playoff situation. Sunderland, of course, managed to get into the playoffs as well, so could be an interesting end to the season for everybody. Paul Gibson says, "Bruce out and come on Sheffield Wednesday on Friday." Tom says, "I'd like to see us host an England game or a cup final at St James's Park in the future. Do you think it'll happen?" We've had England games before us, haven't we?
Yeah, they've been good. They've been great occasions. Been to an England game myself at St James's. If the opportunity comes up to play a game at St James's, I think we should be in the mix for it. There's been games recently at Middlesbrough and at Sunderland in recent years since St James's last hosted. So it would be good. It's a fantastic stadium. It's a fantastic venue. We see, like we talked before there, we see the rugby up at St James's. Hopefully, if we get the Euros in future years, there'll be games at St James's as well. I remember seeing Neymar in the Olympics in 2012 playing for Brazil at St James's Park. So you get to see different players. So yeah, it would be great opportunity.
Yeah, it would be fantastic. Cup final wise, I don't think we'll see an actual cup final. We've had a few, local non-league finals at St James's Park, etc. But I couldn't see a cup final at St James's Park, Ross. No,
I don't think they'll. The trouble that we've got with the FA is that they're just so tied into Wembley because they need to service the debts and pay for the vast money that was used to build Wembley. It's still seen as the national stadium, and it is a fantastic venue. Semi-finals, I'd like to see semi-finals move back to neutral venues though.
Yeah,
You
me
know,
too.
going to, you know, Old Trafford or Villa Park or St James's, you know, imagine coming up, you know, a game, you know, whether I don't know who it is, you know, Man City against Liverpool at St James's in an FA Cup semi-final. I think it'd be a great for the city as well. You know, brings a lot of money into the city over that weekend as well. So a lot of business. So that would be the next step for me would be to try and get them FA Cup semi-finals or League Cup semi-finals on neutral venues.
Yeah, Liam's doing well, Scott. He's saying a great show. I just wondered what happened to Liam Kennedy. Will he be doing it again soon? He's back in the summer, mate. He is back working hard. He's got a few things that he needs to get put to bed before the summer. So Liam will be back in the summer. Rest assured. Roger says, didn't Everton get a slap on the wrist? They have to show the Premier League all transactions going forward. I didn't hear that, Roger, but that wouldn't be surprising if they got a slap on the wrist. And I missed that if that did actually happen. Newcastle, of course, have a few games left before the season comes to a close, and we return to action this coming Sunday when we travel to the Etihad Stadium to take on league leaders Manchester City. Hot on the heels of taking on Liverpool at St James's Park. It is a 4:30 kickoff, and it's going to be shown on Sky Sports Live. All 3,000 away tickets for the game have been sold. This is our 17th visit to this venue in the Premier League, and we've lost all but 2 of them. So that does not bode well. Our sole success, the game we won, was in a League Cup tie. Eddie Howe's team will, of course, be looking to halt that sequence of 12 league losses since a 0-0 draw back in 2006. A little bit early in the week, of course, for team news. And Pep Guardiola has a little matter of a Champions League semi-final tie on Wednesday night to navigate first. Referee and VAR have not been announced yet, but it's another free hit, Ross, this game, isn't it? Newcastle, of course, you know, came up against Liverpool, champions elect, and now face Manchester City. And we could have a say in which way the title goes again this weekend. It's another roll of the dice. It
is. You're right. The free hit's a good way of describing it. Just go and enjoy it. Just go and see how it's set up against these teams, how we can compete against these teams, what the levels are like that Newcastle need to strive to reach and achieve. It's a one-off game. You never know what's going to happen. Like you say, City have got a huge game in the Bernabeu in midweek, so you never know. They might be a little bit under the weather after that, or they might be a little bit distracted. Again, they've got a massive squad, so they'll probably just make 5 or 6 changes and bring in 5 or 6 world-class players anyhow. So, give it a go. I'd like to see Newcastle just land more of a blow on City, or try to land more of a blow on City than they were able to against Liverpool at the weekend. But it's going to be another really, really tough game. Another huge game. You know, City have got some fantastic world class top draw players. You know, Phil Foden's possibly my favourite player in the league at the minute, in the Premier League at the minute. I think he's outstanding. So, but they've got so many others, De Bruyne and Jesus, and you know, Sterling, and it's just the list just goes on and on and on. World class players in every department. So it's going to be a tough one.
Prediction, Ross, from you?
I'll be honest, I can't see anything other than a comfortable City win, if I'm being honest. I'd love to say it differently and be honest, a positive, and say, you know, we'll you know, Newcastle going to pinch a 1-0 or get a battling point, but you know, 3-0 City, I think would is in my mind at the minute, unfortunately.
Okay, and 100 years ago today, Ross, do you know who was born?
I do. I've read this.
Go for it, mate.
It's the Clown Prince, isn't it, Mr. Len Shackleton?
It is, and this guy, of course, put together a wonderful chapter on what football directors knew about football when he wrote his autobiography, The Clown Prince of Soccer, which was released in 1956. In chapter 9, I would say, Ross, as somebody eloquently put it on Twitter, the Rothmans years, is about as relevant today as it was back then. But yes, Len Shackleton, the Clown Prince of soccer, was born on this day 100 years ago in 1922. And it's also a happy birthday to one of the best Dutch-speaking managers of all time, Steve McLaren. Ross, as always, absolute pleasure, mate, to have your company. Look forward to seeing you next week, mate. Have a good week. See you next week, mate.
Cheers, guys. Yeah, cheers, Steve.